I'm doing well, guys. Just hanging out down here in Lincoln. How about yourself?
Oh, not too bad. I noticed that you've been podcasting about your struggling Cornhuskers.
Yes, I have. I've been talking about my sad Cornhuskers. Started a show on Twitch every Monday night called Just My Opinion, breaking down the games and having some guests on, and just trying to put my hand into the podcast world and see what happens.
All right, very cool. Well, before Alex and you, I want you guys to talk about preparation and just the challenge that faces offensive linemen with so many great defensive linemen in the league. Because you and I had a good conversation about that before it was live on the air. We were just doing a podcast, so I'd love you to talk about that more. But I want you to first tell me what the Vikings can do better on their offensive line presently, as they have been struggling a bit, especially on the interior. So, what fixes are available for the quarterback, for the offensive coordinator, for the scheme to help out offensive linemen up there?
In my opinion, I think we throw the ball too much under center. I think that when you have a struggling interior three, especially with a young center in Bradbury, who I think is going to be very good, I think that you need to help them out and stop trying to throw deep balls from underneath the center. I think get back in shotgun, give those guys a couple extra yards, let Kirk get back a little bit, be able to survey the field. I know it kind of doesn't fit with the zone scheme, but you can still run the inside-outside zone from the gun. It's not quite, it's just different aiming points, but I think that could really help our interior threes if we just get in the gun a little bit more to help those guys stay a little more stout up front.
Sirles, dude, I have missed you so much.
Hi, sir.
I gotta know before we start talking. You're in the locker
Okay.
room, okay? Diggs goes out there and does his little look at me show with his little hood up and all tied up fancy like a 12-year-old, right? Comes back in the locker room. What do? Do you just point to the exit, like just go, just exit stage left?
I think
What
it's,
do you? What
I
do you do?
think I think at this point you kind of just you almost learn to expect it from every star wide receiver, right? I mean, Antonio Brown set the stage, but if you really want to even go back any farther, think about Terrell Owens and like Chad Ochocinco. Like the receivers have been doing this forever. So does it surprise me a little bit because I've known Diggs since he was a rookie there? Yeah, it surprised me a little bit. I haven't been there the last 2 years, but as a player, you kind of just have to roll your eyes and be like, "Is this really what we're doing?" But I mean, it even goes back as far as everything's so public now. I mean, you look at Adam. Adam kind of threw a shot across the bow at Kirk on the other day after the post game, and then Kirk had to like publicly apologize for it on a podcast, which I don't fully understand. But
Right.
I mean, you don't need that kind of stuff. I mean, the NFL hard enough to win as it is. You don't need the added drama that comes with some of it.
But don't you think that like talking about Thielen, don't you think that that was a little bit necessary? Like a guy like Thielen almost needs to step up because you and I have been in the locker room with Thielen, and we know how well respected he is. So for him to actually have the courage to kind of throw that shot across the bow, don't you think the team kind of needs that? Like, hey, Thielen gets it, he sees it, he's going to try and help motivate this situation.
Right, and the thing that Thielen did, which I thought was great, is he didn't take it as a put down. Guys took it as a put down. Guys made it seem as though he was like, "Oh, Kirk isn't throwing the ball." When really all it is I take it the same way, like when an offensive line coach or when a head coach gets up there and says, "Hey, we need more from X Y Z position, or we need more from certain player." It's not a put down. It's not a direct negative impact on that player. It's a challenge. And I think that was what I think Thielen took it more and spun it as a challenge to this offense. Like, hey, we know we have the best running back in the league in Dalvin Cook. We know we can run the ball for 180 yards a game. But if we can also pass the ball, they're going to be an incredible offense. And I think that's the way Thielen meant it. And people ran with it in whichever way they heard it. But the way I heard that was Thielen saying, hey, we need to make sure we can pass the ball because we can't always run the ball. But when we can pass the ball and run the ball, no one can stop us.
Right.
Talking with former Minnesota Viking offensive lineman Jeremiah Sirles. And I took that the same way with Thielen. I didn't take it so much as he was throwing Cousins under the bus. But at the same time, Jeremiah, tell me about frustration in locker rooms when people start. The way that Sage Rosenfels put it was kind of like thinking about themselves, thinking about my catches, thinking about, did I do my job? Who cares if you did yours or not? I need to get mine. I mean, it feels like on this offensive side right now, it's kind of like teetering on the edge where if they don't get it back together really soon, that these problems are just going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL locker room is the most unique place in the world. Anyone that's been in one can tell you that there's a lot of big personalities crammed into a small space. And the great teams figure out how to make all those personalities coexist. And that's why I think that for me, the 2017 season when I was with Minnesota, we were able to not put all that aside, mostly because we had to. I mean, we lose Teddy, we lose Sam, we got Case out there. And, I mean, you just kind of have to put it all away, just be like, how do we put a team together every week? We have injuries all over the offensive line. Defensively, we're kind of figuring things out. And so I think this year, everything was almost so smooth going through the offseason. Everything was so smooth going through the preseason, even through the first few games of the year, that this is really the first time of, like, adversity that's hit this team. And sometimes adversity makes guys do weird things. Guys can turn into the me, the I, or guys can rally behind the leaders, which is what I want to see. I want to see the leaders of this Vikings team, which I'm not entirely sure who can take the reins and really wrangle these guys the way that they need to. But who's going to take the reins and say, hey, screw the me thing, screw the I thing. We got to win games. We're 0-2 in our own division. Like, we got a long road to go just to get to the playoffs, and that's the ultimate goal, just to get the show. And you nailed it. If they can't do that, then this season's going to turn away, and it's going to get out of the hands of everyone in that organization very quickly.
I love how you said that, because you're talking about how, like, you're 0-2 in the division. Not only that, but you're in last place in a very competitive division that's built on really
arguably the best division in the NFC.
Easily. I mean, it might even be one of the best divisions in the league right now. But you're looking at it and you go, why, oh, why would you draft a tiny center? Sirles, for the life of me. Who would go, you know what? Let's go draft the smallest guy to snap the ball. And now I have a question, though, because you said you think the best fix would be shotgun. For a guy that's getting pushed around as much as this tiny little fella is, I don't know that I would put the quarterback too far behind him because of where the ball might end up. If you don't think, you know what I'm saying?
I understand, but look at Pat. Pat Efline went through the same struggles, and that's your Ohio State boy, OH, blow O.
Easy.
I mean, Pat had the struggles as a rookie, too. You were there. You
right.
saw it. I mean, that's just, when you go from college to the NFL, you go from blocking like, oh, I'm better than all these guys, to, oh, my gosh, these are grown animals on the other side of the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And it takes time. I mean, it took Pat a year. I mean, and then Pat had that ankle issue, and so he didn't have a full offseason, so he struggled again. But I thought Pat's actually been playing fairly decent this year. And it takes O lineman time. I mean, I'll never forget. Dwight Freeney told me when I was a rookie in the rookie in the NFL, he goes, a true offensive lineman doesn't really start to figure out and get good till year 4 or 5.
Dude,
and it's
so
just because
lucky.
that's how much it takes.
Bro, you're so lucky I don't have a bell right now. I would have dinged that bell so loud for that name
For
drop.
what?
I swear to God, Dwight Freeney name drop, you did not just say Dwight Freeney said, where is a bell? Somebody ding a bell right now, I swear to God.
Says the guy who's always saying, well, Frank Gore and me, Anquan Bold.
I just talk about these guys.
Just about to say that.
Oh, you're so full of it.
Jeremiah, I want you to explain to people, because I'm not sure that they understand sort of what offensive linemen are truly up against here. I think we watch and go, hey, if the quarterback got sacked, man, what the hell with this offensive line? But it's been my observation that the guys on the other side have become faster, quicker, and that there's a distinct disadvantage in athleticism from one side to the other. And now everybody passes all the time, so it's just all pass rushers on the defensive line. So what did it take for you to even get yourself prepared to go against the top edge rusher?
I think you have to have a plan, and that plan goes beyond, I'm just going to go out there and set and punch this guy and play ball. Like, you have to have a certain plan for each guy you're going to play against. And I remember as me going against a guy, I would game plan. I would go look at every single third down from the season for that pass rusher. Like, okay, when this guy needed it the most, when he wanted the sack the most, what was his go-to move? Because you can't just be like, okay, athletically, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to mirror this guy. Like, for me personally, that wasn't work. For Alex, maybe because he's some physical specimen, apparently, he might have been able just to go out there and ball. Personally, I know what I am. I know what my strengths and weaknesses were. And so I was like, okay, if this dude's an outside swim to rip move or a dip is hit move, like, I'm going to take that away from him and make him go to a secondary move. If this guy's a bull rush move, I'm going to invite the speed rush. If this guy's an inside spin, I'm going to make sure I stay inside out on him. And then you kind of play ball from there. But one thing is, like, you nailed it. It's a passing league now. These dudes, there's more pass rushers coming out of college because more people are recruiting and turning into pass rushers, which is why you see the good teams in November and December and January. They pound the rock, because if they're able to pound the rock, they kind of neutralize these pass rushers a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, look what New England does when they get to the playoffs. They just feed Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead and all those guys and just say, run the rock. And so I think that is still the necessary recipe for success, is run the football, and then you have to hold up on third down when it gets to it.
I could not agree more with you. I've said this in the past that running the ball is so effective, and you run the ball to get to the playoffs, is my opinion, and then your quarterback gets you to the Super Bowl. So going forward, you talk about this 2017 team, and you were there. Do you think letting Casey Keenum walk was the worst decision they made? Because sometimes people look it's easy to go hindsight like, hey man, Casey was a great fit here. You guys did really well with him. You could have done a lot of good things. But I think the notion was that they had to go sweeter, sexier, prettier. Casey wasn't enough for them. Do you think that if they stuck with him, they'd be in a way better situation?
It's hard to say. I've wrestled with that situation back and forth as
But
well.
you've thought
And the
about it.
main reason I have, and the main reason I don't even necessarily think of it as much as the talent gap between Case and Kirk, because I really don't think the talent gap is huge. I think of it as far as where could they have done with that extra cap money?
Mm-hmm.
What other pieces could they have put around Case in order to elevate his game? What other
Better
pieces could they
aligned.
put around on that already
Yeah.
on that
Yep.
freaking that defense, which is already studly? Like, where could they have added maybe one more All Pro, one more guy? And so I think that's where the difference lies in is what are you getting out of Kirk, what you wouldn't have got out of Case for what the difference in the pay gap would have been. So what? So let's say Case went and signed 2 years, 30 something down in Denver, correct?
36.
So I mean,
yeah.
okay, you take 2 years, 36. You played with another almost 50 million in cap room over another 2 years that you can do a whole bunch with versus the 84 fully guaranteed. Am I glad that started a trend of guaranteed money? Sure. Is it the best move for the Vikings? Hard to say, but the thing is you're now all in on Kirk. I mean, Zimmers, Spielman's. I mean, you go all the way up. Those guys' jobs are now all in on how number 8 performs.
Well, it's a great point, Jeremiah, because you could have also kept Teddy. You could have drafted a quarterback. You didn't like when you get Kirk, he's your guy. He's your franchise quarterback with that huge contract. The door is now shut to who your quarterback is. With Keenum, if it didn't work out, you could have drafted Lamar Jackson, or you could have kept Teddy Bridgewater, see how his knee turned out, and then had him compete with Keenum, and maybe he beats out Keenum, and he's your quarterback from there on. They really locked themselves into basically saying all of our jobs now rely on this man.
But how much of that was because of the actual NFC Championship game itself?
Oh, I totally agree.
I remember
a lot.
I
think a lot
after that game where every single person was like, "Well, if we just had a better quarterback, we'd win to the Super Bowl."
Yep.
Which is not true. It's not true. We straight up got beat on both sides of the ball that game.
Yep.
Right.
Like, and everyone's like, "Well, if we had a better quarterback, we'd be in the Super Bowl." So that's all that everyone heard all offseason.
But you and I know that is such nonsense. Dude, you and I, we saw through that kind of stuff because that was our job to see through that nonsense. And I think when you're looking at this, you say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, they don't make the playoffs this year. Let's just speculate. Do they get rid of him and say, hey, we have to get a quarterback? We just can't keep doing this to ourselves. And not only that, don't you think Stefanski should be even throwing a little more offense out there? Like, dude, you got to flavor this thing up. It's too old school for me to even like.
But how much is, I don't know this, and again, I'm not there, how much is Stefanski's power hampered by Kubiak?
I've wondered the same thing.
There's a lot of questions as who's running the show up there.
I mean, I grew up in Denver watching Mike Shanahan and Kubiak run this offense. I grew up watching Terrell Davis absolutely torch guys, Clinton Portis absolutely torch guys, and what Dalvin's doing is very similar to what they did. Mm-hmm. The difference behind that is they had John Elway. They had the quarterback that could do these things, and that's why it works so well for them. So I agree, the offense might need to get catered a little bit more to what Kirk might feel a little bit more comfortable with. Because if you look back at what Kirk's done in the NFL, okay, he was in Washington, right? He was in a little bit of the same system in Michigan State where he was under center a lot, but in Washington, he was majority in the gun. Right. That's what they ran with. They ran that gun scheme. And so I think that one thing about that 2017 season, I hate keep going back to it, but I thought Shermer, what he was great at is he called plays for his players, not for his scheme. And you see him doing that up in the Giants right now. He's calling plays that he knows that young kid up there knows how to run. He's calling plays that he knows Saquon knows how to run, to where I don't necessarily know if Kirk's very comfortable with the plays that are getting called in the pass game. Again, I'm not there. I don't know. I'm speculating as much as you guys are. But there's definitely just something seems a little different. Something seems a little off. And the question then becomes, how do you fix it? And how do you fix it before this thing gets off the rails? Because right now it's riding the rails.
Yeah, and when you're also trying to hit a lot of your pass plays down the field, but your offensive line is going up against Khalil Mack, it just those two things just don't match up. And Kirk is a guy that will see ghosts and throw it even when there isn't pressure because it's been there all day. And he admitted to that on Wednesday, he even said like, well, I started to feel the pressure a little more and went through my progressions too fast. And that's how you end up with checkdowns to the fullback when Stephon Diggs is running wide open. So it seems, Jeremiah, that all these things are sort of building on themselves. I want to know, though, I want you to tell us something cool, though, because I feel like we've really hammered on how, bad the Vikings have been, but you have a unique knowledge of being able to practice against the Vikings defensive line. And I just want you to tell everyone what it is like to practice against Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin, because these two guys are 1st and 5th in the NFL in pressures right now. And so if anybody's doing their job, it's those two.
Yeah, I mean, those two guys are freaks. I remember when Danielle showed up, my first year there was his rookie year. And I remember I was like, dude, how old are you? And he's like, 20. And you're just like, my God. Like, you freak show, dude. And, like, just to watch him develop into the player that he's become is pretty special. I mean, I remember just watching him as a young kid. He had, like, a 6.5 sacks as a third down rusher as a rookie. And you're like, okay, this guy's going to be good. And that defensive front, I mean, you can go right down the line. Shamar Stephen being back, I thought he was a very solid 3 technique, not the flashy pass rusher, but he's going to get to push and he's going to hold himself in the run game. And then you talk about Linville over the middle. I mean, the dude's one of just a mountain of an individual who just doesn't get moved very easily. And then so if you can plug up the front of the pocket with those two and then push it with Danielle and Everson, I mean, and then you got a guy like Kendrick who's going to make every tackle on the field if you eat a double team. I mean, if you let Linville and Shamar eat up the double teams inside, Kendrick will make every tackle on the field. I think I was at the Oakland game actually, and I was like, dude, this dude has like 15 tackles. Like he was just everywhere.
He was a beast in that game.
And so I mean he's just a monster. And so this defense is as good as it's getting. I think the biggest thing people are worried about now is like, are we going to waste this good defense over the next 2 years because of the sad play of our offense? And I want to go back to one thing right before we switch gears here, which was talking about Kirk under pressure. Alex, you can talk on this a little bit. It's so important that early on in games you let a quarterback be comfortable and find a rhythm. And because when they get rushed and when they get early on in the game, by the end of the game, their timing's sped up so much that they have nothing left in the tank versus if they're comfortable and then they get rushed a little towards the end of the game, their timing's not that off. But Alex, I know we used to talk about it all the time. The timing is everything for a quarterback. And so when you get him pressured early and first couple series of the games, it throws everything off.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I mean, we were talking earlier this week about how Garrett Bradbury, first play of the game, gets the pressure up. Like, you want to set the tone the first play. Where's Akeem Hicks supposed to be? Oh, on the right. All right, ISO right. The next 3 plays. I don't care. Like, we're setting the tempo over again. You don't like it? Go. I mean, I'm 100% with you. I'm so glad you said that, Sirles.
Jeremiah, we're running low on time here, but I want you to tell me how this plays out. Do you think that they sort of get it together here and galvanize themselves and go forward? Or am I in for a lot more weeks like this?
I mean, I'm going to give Chicago its credit. They're one of the best teams, best defenses in the NFL. So I'm very interested to see how we respond. Do we come out firing the rock 30, 40 times next game, or do we stick to what do they stick to what they know as far as they're going to run the ball, some play action shots, and look a lot like the Oakland game? I think this week will tell. This week will make or break. Is this season going to be long? Is this season going to be a turnaround where they can galvanize themselves and go forward? I think Zimmer's the right guy to do that. I've been in those meetings. I know what he says. He's going to get them ready to play. And it's really going to be, okay, who did the leaders on this team, who steps up and says no more of this nonsense in the locker room? Internally, this needs to get handled, not through the media, not through everyone outside. Internally, the leaders have to handle and, like I said, rein in that locker room because right now there's too much outside noise.
You can follow him on Twitter. He now has a podcast. I've seen YouTube links. It's wonderful. Jeremiah Sirles, Sirles71 _ HSKR, presumably Husker. And I think you do get to say we. If you had a jersey and it's at your house and it's yours with Minnesota Vikings on it, I think you get we for good. So that means McCown can say we for the entire league, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Great to catch up with you. I hope we can do it again soon, Jeremiah. Thanks for